seen one too many movies.
Nah, Sid, don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
Hey, welcome back. I woke up early today and had really bad anxiety. And I had no pressing work. Thank God. Thank God I had no pressing work. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. I'm just going to go for like a walk. Go for a walk, get myself some iced cafe. And I went down to the beach. Went for a walk along the boardwalk. That was nice. Got some sun on my disgustingly white legs. And then I was starting to feel like, feeling good, feeling alive, feeling everything. Walk up, don't know where I am really. I don't really like understand the beaches area. It's kind of like, I don't know. It all just kind of looks the same to me. It's very pleasant. I actually like the beaches. I prefer the east end to the west end of Toronto now. More trees, less people. The life. And so I went to Starbucks to get my iced coffee. What the fuck are these fucking new lids? Like, what self-respecting adult wants to drink out of this? This is so humiliating. Walking around with my fucking sippy cup like a fucking baby. Mama. I don't know. Anyway, if I would have known that like I was going to get a lid with that on it. No, actually, I guess I did know. I just forgot. Well, fuck you anyway, Starbucks. And it's not even like you could bring your own straw. Like I have glass straws at home, but it's like they wouldn't even fit through the hole. So I just don't understand the fucking point of these. It's like you're not saving turtles or dolphins by eliminating plastic straws from your business that's fucking cups are all plastic. Like those are way bigger. This is a huge, it's all bad. It's all bad, motherfuckers. Use something other than plastic or just charge so much that people like just bring their own cups, you know? Like they do charge so much already. It's like, well, if you're charging like $4 for a fucking iced coffee, then it should be in an environmental cup. What the fuck am I paying for? Anyway, God. You know, and I went to, and the reason I went to the Starbucks is not just because Starbucks has like the highest caffeine content, I think, of all the coffee places, but because it's like the perfect walking distance back to my apartment, so that by the time I get to my apartment, I am just like in the door, 2 minutes later, dropping a beautiful morning coffee shit in the toilet, cleaned out, feeling good, flat abs, good to go. And so then I'm walking with my coffee, sipping it like a humiliated adult, pretending to be a fucking baby. And then I pass another Starbucks. And it's been, I don't know, like 5 minutes or something. And I realize, oh no, this is the Starbucks closest to my apartment, not the one I just went to. And I don't know if you're a person who shits when they drink coffee like I am. But it doesn't have to be a whole cup. You know what I mean? It just has to be like 3 mouthfuls to really like start activating the colon. Or I don't really know how the science behind this works, where it's like, you know, it really starts the juices going. It starts the process, right? So I'm like, oh boy, well, maybe it'll be fine. Maybe I'll make it in time to my apartment. I feel like I'm a creature of habit though. And my sphincter muscles were trained for this walk and the exact length of time it takes to get to my apartment and then shit. And I didn't make it. No, I'm just kidding. I did make it. But it was really uncomfortable. I had to shit for like 5 minutes of my walk. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to turtlehead. I mean, I don't care because, again, I live in the East End. There's barely anyone around, barely anyone my age. It's like yoga moms, a handful of crackheads, and I don't know, just like old people or whatever, and little kids. So I guess I wouldn't even really care. I could just pull my shorts over and drop a turd out on the street, and somebody would just think it was a dog or something. A little Shih Tzu left a cute little poo on the street. I don't really know what the point of me telling you the story was. So this is probably more what the podcast is actually going to be. I had like the noble intentions of sort of making this more academic and critical, but I feel like it's not going to stay that way. to episode 2 and it's over. It's game over. I'm going to talk about Midsommar and Hereditary and do a half-assed talk about how I think Ari Aster's this like spectacular troll of filmmaking. But now I'm all hopped up on the plastic thing because every time I go into Dollarama by my apartment, this fucking cashier, she's always working whenever I go in there. I don't know if I just happen to like get a craving for ketchup chips at the exact time that she's on shift or whatever. She's this old broad. She wears so much fucking eyeliner. It's like bitch eyeliner. Full rim, inside, outside, top and bottom, onyx, pencil. Anyway, she throws me passive aggressive shade every time I go in there. It's like, I just fucking expect it. It's like if I go in there with my roommate, she'll compliment her on her shirt or whatever she's got on her at the time. And I'm like waiting for my compliment, even though I know it's not coming. She just gives me like a blank stare as if I'm not total fire in my track pants and my flat earth t-shirt. Fuck you, lady. I know my worth. But anyways, I was in there the other day. Again, she's there, working there. And I'm behind this fucking, like, I don't know how old she was, like 10, 12, whatever year old girl. And I don't know. Let's just call this lady Brenda. No, let's call her Heather. She's a Heather. I watch Heather, the cashier, like, congratulate this fucking 12-year-old girl for not taking a plastic bag for her 2 fucking chocolate bars. This woman, literally, she reaches across the counter and holds this child's tiny hand in hers and tells her she's, like, a hero for not taking a plastic bag. First of all, who even takes a plastic bag for 2 chocolate bars? That is wasteful. You shouldn't do that. Just, like, for other reasons. Like, not even the environment, but just, like, it's just unnecessary. So then the fucking girl trots off with her chocolate. And then I'm sitting there with like all my fucking ketchup chips and my Junior Mints and whatnot. And she begrudgingly asks if I need a plastic bag. When clearly I do, because I have a bunch of shit. And I didn't have my Trader Joe's bag on me. Yeah, I have a Trader Joe's bag. What? I would rather be living in LA. Okay, I like to pretend. It's a game I play. I play it when I'm out in public, and I don't care what you think. Anyway, so Heather rolls her fucking, like, eye of Horus at me. And just like, Lady, plastic bags are not the problem. Look around the store that you work in. Everything is fucking plastic. You're part of the problem. I'm part of the problem, too. I'm fucking poor, though. So, well, I guess she's probably poor, too. We're all part of the problem. So don't be behaving like you're not part of the problem. What the fuck is one plastic bag going to do? I use plastic bags that I get for my garbage because 5 cents a bag is still cheaper than buying a box of larger, thicker, more wasteful bags. You're not saving any dolphins with your smug congratulations to some stupid kid who you've now also convinced she's a fucking hero and saving dolphins. If you're buying a bunch of chocolate enclosed in plastic, how does that deserve a congratulations? This plastic bag thing is propaganda. It's like, and people just fucking lap it up because they're idiots. It's like, I'm sorry, but like, you're not saving the planet by not having a plastic bag when you're buying chicken in styrofoam, driving an SUV, like feeding your children like organic beef jerky treats that probably, it's like a cow's giant fucking leg dehydrated down to the size of a crayon. And like these fucking like palm oil treats. Some tons of the vegan stuff. It's like you just killed a baby orangutan and a fucking cow. Bitch. You really want to help? Go kill yourself and your family. I shouldn't have said that. You know what? I'm going to leave it in. I'm going raw. I'm raw dogging this podcast. Don't worry. I don't have anything, baby. Yeah, maybe I do. Sticks and stones. Wow, what a breath of goddamn fresh air. Saw some people in my TL up in arms over the new Dave Chappelle special. You're not brave for writing a pedophile joke. You're not brave for telling a pedophile joke. Actually, I would argue that he is brave for telling a pedophile joke because most people can't tell a good pedophile joke, and he actually did. I'm not a fan of pedophile jokes as a general rule, But if you can drop a good pedophile joke, I will appreciate it. I sat through a stand-up set once of this guy who was making pedophile jokes, and it was the most horrible thing ever. It was awful. The jokes were so bad. The guy was clearly a pedophile himself. And then he tried to give people like this McCain fucking deep dish half-eaten cake, and he tried to give some to me, and he was trying to bond with me because I was wearing a Mickey Mouse sweater, and he was like, I love Mickey Mouse, you're like me. And I was like, no, no, I'm not like you. You're there's something wrong with you, dude. But yeah, I don't know. Yes, usually people who make pedophile jokes are like scum of the earth, but you know what, I'm inclined to think that the comedians, the best of the best, these guys who've got Netflix specials, they can pull it off. You know, and I feel like the comedians who are actually like having the balls to say all this shit, say all the un-PC stuff and like comment on it, and they're actually doing it with finesse. And I feel like Whitney Cummings' newest special, I'm not really a big fan of Whitney Cummings, but I do think she presented the Me Too stuff in a pretty hilarious way. She did a really good job, but I think that the people who are actually managing to pull it off are going to reap the benefits, because there's all these cowards afraid of like losing followers or friends or fans or opportunities. And so I totally am pro any comedian who wants to like just take it on, provided they're actually fucking talented. I don't support the untalented people doing this. But you know, some people are up in arms about Dave Chappelle, but I feel like he made, you know, he was kind of regurgitating content from his previous specials. And I feel like if you have watched those and you didn't have a problem with it then, I don't know why the fuck you would have a problem with it now, unless you've just suddenly decided, well, I'm a social justice warrior now. Or wait, you can't say that about this person. Like, but you didn't have a problem with it before. No, now you're woke. You know, I think that, you know, I think if you're just getting woke now, you're kind of late on the train. It's like when people, it's like getting on the 90s trend now. It's like, you know what? It's kind of already been going for a while. Like, you're kind of late to this. Doesn't really feel authentic. You just feel like you're trying to be one of the cool kids, and you're not cool. Neither are they, but you're even worse because you're late to being with them. Anyways, it's worth watching. I'd also like to take a moment. You know, my whole thing with this podcast is that, I mean, I'll probably end up just talking about shit like my bowel movements again and whatever, and just being angry at people. But, you know, I mostly want to do this to also support artists and talk about art that I like. I don't really feel like there's any point in just coming on here and trashing people's movies or whatever. However, can I just talk for a minute about Brittany Runs a Marathon? I haven't watched the movie. I find it highly unlikely that I will watch the movie unless I'm forced to by one of my female friends. I'm not opposed to the idea of the movie itself, like about a chick who gets her life together and loses weight, stops drinking, I'm assuming, I don't know, stops sucking dick or whatever the narrative is. But did it have to be qualified as being based on a true story? Are we that deprived in culture for inspiring true stories about actual adversity and triumph and everything else that that we need the true story of Brittany losing 30 pounds and running a marathon, which she didn't win? I don't know. You know, knock yourself out. Love the movies you love, but it's still fucking preposterous that someone would make a true story based on that. If you want to watch a real inspirational movie, watch A Prayer Before Dawn. The true story of Billy Moore. I mean, it's an inspiring story within the confines of the story, but I think that Billy Moore, the former Muay Thai boxer, I think when the film was screening in Sundance, he actually ended up getting arrested again. So maybe it's not like, you know, a lifelong and inspiring story, but it's pretty fucked up. My ex made me watch it when I was getting really whiny about my life. He's like, you got to watch A Prayer Before Dawn, Larissa. You got to watch A Prayer Before Dawn, Tom. It's going to change your life. You're going to not feel so, you're going to feel like, wow, you really have it good. So you should really watch this movie. And you know what? I did feel that way after I watched A Prayer Before Dawn. Wow, what a ride. Highly recommend. Maybe it's a nice follow-up to watch after Brittany runs a marathon. uh, I was like almost crying when I saw that trailer at Luce. Uh, I guess I could talk about Luce too. I mean, I started this episode thinking, oh, well, I'm going to talk about Hereditary and Midsommar, but now I'm kind of going on a tangent here. Oh, that's good. I'm warming up. I'm loosening up. I'm getting conversational with myself. Okay. Luce, so what's that movie with Naomi Watts and who's the guy in it? That British guy, Tim Roth. Where they have this like adopted son from some violent part of Africa, and he writes this like kind of pro-violence essay. And when I saw the trailer for that, I was like, yeah, like I have to see this. I have to see this movie. I don't think it was like great. I thought thematically it was a very intriguing movie. I thought that it presented interesting ideas of, wearing a mask in society. I feel like it was more just about kind of the struggles of wanting to rebel against being put in a box, but also realizing the box can benefit you. Overall, I feel like it's worth watching for sure. And I love Octavia Spencer. I fucking loved her in Ma. She's kind of got this like, I don't know, this like quality to her that's just kind of, I don't know, she's kind of mesmerizing. And I'll just do one last little thing that I thought was pretty funny in the last week. Was some Max Landis news, which gotta say doesn't get old. Doesn't get old. Give me some more. I can't wait to have some more. This chick, Kath Barbadoro on Twitter, posted about Max Landis pretending to be his own girlfriend in a wrestling forum 10 years ago. And it wasn't just like, oh, he went in and, made a few posts being like, I love Max Landis' movie and I used to date him and I think he's great. He made 6,500 posts under this fake person. And a lot of them are in support of Max Landis. You can find this shit on Twitter. I don't know. I don't know how to link it. When I originally had the idea to make a podcast, like a couple months ago, I was going to start with an Ari Aster episode. But then, I don't know, life, laziness, whatever. And then time passed and I was like, well, I guess this isn't really relevant anymore. But, now he's dropping a director's cut on the world on Friday, so maybe it is relevant. Haven't watched it yet, obviously. I will go watch it. I read the script for it, so I mean, I guess I already know what's going to happen. But since this feels relevant again, I'm going to cash in on that because I loved the film. I loved Midsommar. I loved it substantially more than Hereditary. I guess, I don't know, like spoiler alerts abound, but if you haven't watched Midsommar, I don't know how to say Midsummer, whatever, then I don't know, don't listen to this, I guess. You've had plenty of fucking time. But yeah, I want to talk about Ari Aster's work in general because I have an unresearched, uninformed thesis about his body of work, and I think that it's that Ari Aster's like actually secretly a provocateur. I think he's a fucking troll. I think he's trolling everybody, and I love it. The reason is because if you look up one of his old short films, The Strange Things About the Johnsons, it's about a young black man. Actually, he's like a child in the beginning, I think, and he like rapes his dad all the way through adulthood. The dad writes about it and then ends up dead. It's pretty fucked up. I'm not touching that shit in this podcast. That's not something I need to touch. Don't want to really touch that. Pretty fucking gross. But I think that it gives you insight into the mind of Ari Aster because he obviously likes fucking with his audience and subverting tropes and shit. He's out there flipping the script, you know. And I think he's like one of the few modern filmmakers that could pull off like some Kubrick kind of level shit. You know, not in his short films are not so hot, but you can see the clay being molded in the shape of dad rape. Followed by much more accomplished pottery, film pottery. I don't know, that doesn't really work. Yeah, he has other short films, but that one's kind of the trophy, I suppose, the troll trophy. There's a Munchausen one that's just like a really long, boring music video, so I just kind of like skimmed through it. Didn't really watch it. And then he has one about a guy whose dick shrinks. He's like this perverted guy and his dick shrinks. It's pretty funny. So when I initially saw Hereditary, I was like not stoked on it because the third act didn't really land for me. I mean, it was like, it still did to a degree, but the thematic feeling that I got at the end was sort of this like all hail the male vibe. And it kind of confused me because I knew that probably was incorrect. And that also didn't really like feel like the intention at the beginning of the film. Like the first half of the film was fucking incredible. Like the scene in the car, that was top notch. Fucking yeah, man. Would have just whipped it out right there and started jacking it if I hadn't been in a theater. It was fucking hot. Good cinema. Good storytelling. So I went back and I watched it a second time because I was like, I feel like I didn't understand something. And I wanted to understand it. So that's when I saw this transgender narrative emerge. And it's literally right there for the seeing. So I don't know. I've watched Hereditary a couple times, but not recently. So maybe there's more to look at. If I was going to dive deeper, I'd research the literary references in Peter's class and the origin of the god and all that stuff. But I don't know. I'm more interested in just sort of working through with what's just there on the screen, I guess. So Hereditary felt like it was about the worship of the other. So like the ostracized, the unnatural in our culture, and how people are kind of forcing this transgender narrative onto kids and how it's potentially fucking them up and the effect on the family unit, but also like showing the trauma of the child who's experiencing gender dysphoria as well, whether it's like authentic or inflicted on them by their family. And this feels really relevant to what's happening right now. Some really crazy shit's going on with parents like encouraging gender bending and stuff. And I don't know. And then, but I also, you know, obviously I think like there are people who obviously like genuinely are transgendered. So that sort of topic was like the manifested dark presence in the household. So whether it's like recognized or not, it's swept under the rug. And I know that there was like the mom's mental illness and throwing gas on the kids and then having the match and stuff. It felt to me like it was still just reinforcing this kind of theme. But like my own opinion on this topic is that I don't have enough information to weigh in on whether or not it's good or bad thing for kids to be taught this kind of stuff super young. I think there's like there's not even like 1% of people who identify as trans. So, you know, and I don't know if that number takes into account people in the closet or the people who transition and then transition back or regret transitioning, or the kids who were like, you know, botched circumcisions or something and then forced to be transgendered. But I get the sense that watching this shit play out from a distance, that like seems to be like a white, I don't want to be like it's white straight cis people, but it kind of fucking is, that they could completely fuck up their kids trying to force this narrative on them so that they can like be like, I'm woke, see, I have a transgendered kid. Like I really legitimately think people are doing that the same way I think people are faking being queer and shit now so that they can be like, I'm oppressed, see, I'm oppressed too, I get it, I'm not like you, I'm not like them, I'm not like those cis-het white guys, fucking privileged fuckbags. Like I know people who are pretending to be queer. Anyways, listen, I was queer in art school before it was cool, so I can say this. Suck it. Cut to 10 years later and we're watching Sleepaway Camp play out in real time. I legit think that that's going to happen, where some like fucking kids go off the deep end because their parents like idiotically transitioned them when they were like too young to even know what the fuck is going on with their body or who they are, and then these kids fucking like are super fucked up later in life. I think that that damage of transitioning someone who's actually doesn't really like is too young to make up their mind is way more damaging than not letting them transition until they're a fucking adult. I don't know. I don't think like a 6 or 7-year-old need to know about this shit. Like they're barely beyond monkey level intellect. They're fucking pigs. Like I don't know, isn't a pig as smart as like a 3-year-old or some shit? They're like just doubly as smart as a pig. They shouldn't be able to pick a gender. Like just let them be little kids. You don't have to talk to them about this shit. Just let them play with their Barbies or their G.I. Joes or whatever. It doesn't have to be like a fucking discussion or like a decision. Not everything in the world like needs to be explained to a baby, you know? Don't get in the white van with the man with a bag of Gushers, Jonathan. Like that seems sufficient. You know what? But I don't have kids, so what do I know? I don't fucking want them either. The world is a horror show. I think it's kind of cruel to bring a child into this fucking festival of nightmares. And if I did accidentally have a kid, one just popped out, whoops, well, I guess I'll keep it. I'd fucking homeschool them in a barn, far the fuck away from you goddamn animals, regardless of whatever the fuck you're teaching. I don't know what the hell's going on in the world anymore. It's scary. I want to hide. I want to live I want to live on the beach. I want to have like a Heidi Fleiss parrot farm. I want to help the injured parrots, like elderly parrots, tend to them, just go write on my typewriter, live on the beach. That sounds pretty nice. Anyway, Ari Aster. Hereditary. So I don't feel like it was picking a side per se. I think that it was commentary on how transgendered people are now kind of like exalted by the far left, but also suppressed by tradition. So like I'm kind of assigning the far left to the Granny Witch cult because they're like these fucking hippies who are both progressive and oppressive in their beliefs and execution of method to enforce those beliefs. So they're like killing people to further their agenda. And their agenda is like to support this like God who's in the wrong body, but really they're just trying to like get money out of it. And I feel like that's very apropos for what's happening right now. Apropos. I love that word. So the child Charlie, the one who gets beheaded, if you just examine her general character, she's like allergic to nuts. Nuts. Yeah, that's right. She ate a nut. She suffocated on the nut and then was beheaded. Like that's talking like that's nuts and heads. That's phallic. That's penis imagery. That's dick. That's dick symbolism. She also clucked like a bird. And as we all know, birds don't have dicks. They have cloacas. They have like these gender amorphous fuckholes. It's like a digestive genital. They shit and fuck with it. Anyway. Charlie cuts the head off the birds too. A phallic sacrifice, perhaps. And then she puts the heads of these dead birds on toys. A bird head decays. A toy body doesn't. Kind of furthering this notion of the wrong body. And then they're crowned because this is the new exalted state. And Annie the mom, played by Toni Collette, does a similar thing, which is like with her little houses that she builds, like her art houses. Like she's an adult woman playing with doll houses, which feels very traditional. So she kind of represents that side, I think. And I think that it presents itself with her trying to like put her head in the sand instead of dealing with her child's identity suffering. Like, okay, so that's like point ABC or whatever. And then the name is like Charlie, which is gender ambiguous, obviously. And then it's stated in the film that the grandma wanted Charlie to be a boy. So just to reiterate the granny and her coven, and my interpretation is that they're the far left in this scenario. Did Charlie want to be a boy? Or did Granny just fucking brainwash her because she wanted a son to be like the host of this male god to further the Granny's agenda? So, and like the goal of the coven was monetary. Again, back to this, like, there are no perfect people in this scenario. Like, everyone's a piece of shit. And then we have Peter, who's like this kind of traditional boy who's like, oh, likes a girl and like smokes weed or whatever. And he's like, I guess, attractive. Yeah, he's a good looking kid, aside from that mole, but I don't know. Maybe he'll Enrique it off his face at some point. Is that really mean? I don't want to pick on that guy for having a mole. If you feel like it's a beauty mark, rock it. And then like the god or the ghost or whatever it is moves on to Peter, the healthy male, after Charlie's dead. So it's like this narrative is now like infecting someone who otherwise didn't have an identity crisis, but it's being forced on them by this evil coven that want him to be this other thing for them. See what I'm saying here? This is the culture we live in right now. I don't know how long ago Ari Aster wrote this. Maybe Ari Aster's just got like the sight, because I'll touch on that with Midsommar, which he apparently wrote like, in a very, like, he wrote it a while ago too. So I think he's just like on the pulse and he's a troll and I love it. So, okay. So Peter, the brother, and Peter, so the brother Peter, which we all know that Peter is also slang for cock. Sorry, Peter, whoever the Peter is out there listening, but it's true. Your name means dick sometimes, right? You know it. We all know it. So he's invited to this like heteronormative American stereotype of a party, going for the pretty girl in class, and he's told, huge party, bring your dick. Again with the phallic symbolism. But he can't really bring his dick because he's got to bring his fucking sister who's allergic to nuts. And then she ruins his fun time, maybe getting some putting the dick in the puss, because she eats some nutty fucking cake. She fucking cock blocks Peter and then suffocates on the masculinity of the nuts. Like, I'm not totally clear on the supernatural forces at work in this film, but her being beheaded could have also been because the Grandma's coven, like they wanted this body change and, they needed the sacrifice. And that scene was fucking amazing. That was some powerful shit. Holy hell, like that drive back to the house. God, I was just on the edge of my seat, covered in goosebumps. God. So anyways, but when she loses her head, she kind of loses her gender too, I suppose, right? And Peter can't look. He can't look at the monstrosity that's left in the car. And I mean, you could even argue that that cutting off her head was maybe cutting off the most useless part of a woman. Might be reaching with that one. And then in class later, Peter starts banging his own fucking head off a desk. This child essentially steals Peter's place as the man. So if you want to like work backwards to what I believe they said in the beginning-ish time of the movie, was that Toni Collette's character didn't want her mother fucking up her son, so she protected him. And this feeds this notion of helicopter parenting, raising these kind of clueless, helpless, emasculated boys, almost as if he's not living up to his own masculinity, and so it's taken from him because he doesn't deserve it. The mother, again, Annie, played by Toni Collette, is the embodiment of female hysteria. She's like this grown woman who plays with dolls and dollhouses. She like has these hysterical flights of fancy, like thinking, oh, I can contact ghosts, having these like night walker episodes. She can't handle anything in her family. She lives in a fantasy world. And I think that this sort of shows the envy of the normal, or like the desire of the normal, and like punishing the normal for being normal. Like poor Peter, right? He's the only one who's sort of just, and the husband, like he goes up in flames for his wife's like psycho bullshit. Of course, he's the white, that cis white guy, and he goes up in flames for his wife's like deranged bullshit. And the classroom scenes, I did take a couple notes about that, even though I didn't do any research on it. There were the words on the blackboard: escaping fate and relationship between knowledge and responsibility, and no man considered fortunate until he is dead. And then the hand-sewn doormat that feels like a symbolic false welcome, like being invited in only to be exploited. Like it's like, oh, we're inviting you in with compassion, but it's really just so we can exploit and use you to our own means. And I feel like this, with the last episode I did was The Hunt, and that was talking about current culture, quite literally. And I'm not the kind of person who sees current culture in every movie I watch, but I do feel like you see it in Ari Aster's films, and obviously it was in Jordan Peele's Us, and obviously Get Out, which, well, that was like more literal interpretation, but I don't know. I have a hot take on Us too, so I might do a podcast on that episode actually. Oh, and then so Ari Aster's Midsommar, which, so I haven't watched the director's cut yet, but I did read his script, and let me tell you about Ari Aster's script for Midsommar. Bruh cheated margin. Bruh cheated fucking margins, man. The script is like 120 pages long, or 117 pages or something. Obviously, he probably had to, for production reasons, get it down to 120 pages. But when you're reading the script, you're like, this ain't gonna be a 2-hour script, because he fucking did like classic, gotta get that fucking screenplay squished down and entered into a contest or something. Squished spacing, dual dialogue where there's no dual dialogue in the movie. Cheating the margins top and bottom. Fucking hilarious. I love it. Love it. I mean, I don't love it when people do that and they think they're being smart, but Ari Aster clearly is smart, so he can get away with it. So just want to preface this by saying I don't know nothing about no runes, nothing about no pagan ritual, no Henry Darger wall paintings. Again, I don't feel like doing research on any of this shit. I'm just interpreting what I see on the film, in the film, and obviously it was a movie about a relationship. But I felt like the boyfriend represented all of the kind of guys caught up in this Me Too wave, and like the ones who are just generic dumb guys, you know what I mean? Not like rapists or whatever. And I feel like Danny, played by Florence Pugh, represents the hysterical mobs of feelings culture and women on Twitter. And I think I watched some interview with him where he was like, "Oh, I relate to like the Danny character. I relate to the Annie character." I'm like, I don't know if you're just saying that, Ari Aster. I think you might be just saying that to try to avoid getting sniffed out, but I love it. So yeah, I saw Midsommar right when it first came out, and I watched it with my ex-boyfriend, and that was very telling. Our reactions were very telling to the ending. Spoiler alert again. So, which kind of also illustrates my interpretation of what Midsommar is actually about. And I think it's like the canceling and destruction of cisgendered straight men via feelings Twitter mobs of overly sensitized women and their allegedly empathetic male allies. Because it's like the male ally fucking is who's killing all the guys, is the one who comes out on top in the end, making out with like Danny with her fucking flower hat on. So like the tragedy creates more tragedy. Like, because it creates its own cycle of like guilt and resentment and despair. Like Danny can't get what she wants from Christian, because Christian doesn't want to give it to her, but he can't get rid of her because he feels bad about her family being murder-suicided. And because he won't release her, she just suffers. She's like this wounded, codependent creature. And she just wants to be heard and validated, and she wants empathy, but she can't get it from her boyfriend because he's just a fucking guy. Like, we all know this guy. We've all dated this guy. And honestly, like, I've been the female version of this guy in relationships as well. I don't think that this guy is technically bad. He's just like an aloof idiot. And but I do think that that type of person is being punished right now by the feelings mobs. Like, you're so insensitive. You didn't word that correctly. Oh, how dare you, you cishet white man. You just don't understand. You still understand. Like, well, you know what? They don't have to understand. And you don't have to fucking understand what it's like to be a cis white, whatever. I don't know. Who cares? Who cares if you don't understand each other? Why does everyone have to understand each other? Why does everyone have to sympathize with each other? Why does everyone have to fucking cater to each other's feelings? Why? I don't need people to do that for me, and I don't want to do it for them. If you're my close friend, absolutely, I don't want to hurt your feelings. You know, I don't go out of my way to just walk out on the street and hurt people's feelings, but sure, if you piss me off, maybe I'll do it on purpose. You know, it happens by accident. I just feel like, God, everyone's trying to, it's like people are trying to turn the world into the worst part of Canada, which is just constantly fucking apologizing, but no one fucking means it. It's just, it's lip service. Do you really want to live in a world of lip service? I don't fucking want to. Who cares? Just who cares? Let it go. People are people. Anyway, where was I going with this? And then Danny, just by virtue of just being victim, oh, and then she's like a victim again of like her boyfriend cheating on her. And so she's embraced by this culture of unadulterated but totally selective empathy. They try to like present themselves as being fair and just, but then they're murdering people in quaintly horrific Nordic ways. They're just doing it under the guise of community. Danny's character arc is basically to go from this concerned, feeling pain for others person to throwing the only person she has left ostensibly under the bus, and to finally have what she's always wanted, validation, others to acknowledge her pain, to be present in her suffering with her, just like the Twitter feelings mobs. It's the ultimate SJW movie and the ultimate SJW move. You know, and I'm not saying that, like, I'm not particularly, and you know, I enjoyed the ending. I related to both Danny and Christian. You know, I felt unheard and alone in relationships before when I've been in pain and didn't feel supported. Absolutely. And it does make you feel like crying on the floor of a summer camp chalet. But to the same point, I've also been the heartless asshole who's just kind of oblivious to another person's pain, on some level doesn't want to deal with their problems and just wants the fun part. Or straight up just kind of just wants them to go away, but doesn't have the balls to be like, hey, you know, I don't actually like you. Can you just fucking like leave? I don't think that Ari Aster was picking a side with this film. I mean, you could say that he is with that ending. I think it was more just like, this feels like the outcome that's occurring right now. It's hilarious. It's fucking hilarious when Christian goes up in flames because he is an asshole. But Danny's a fucking asshole too. Everyone's a fucking asshole. You know, and I think Ari Aster did a great job of presenting this like bird's eye metaphor of like our current social climate. It didn't really feel like a horror film to me at all. It felt more like this intense coming of age, but like I don't know like what a coming of age film is now, because they used to be like these on the precipice of pubescent kind of movies where it's like Stand By Me or something. You know, these boys go on a journey to find the body and stuff. And now it's like almost feel like we're having a second wave of adolescence. Like people are discovering, oh, I have a voice, and like, oh, like I'm gonna try to fucking kill the cool kids. I'm gonna take down the cool kids, and I'm gonna be cool, and I'm gonna be a hero for being a nerd and a loser. And it feels like the second coming of high school and coming of age. It's like adult teens or something. You know, like, you know, I'm not excluding myself from this narrative. I feel like I'm definitely stuck in a state of arrested development with, you know, many of my peers who are in their 30s, where it's like, wow, we have roommates. and we have no money saved, and life is fucked. So I don't know, this whole thing felt appropriate because this also feels like what relationships are now too. And I also love that it was just like fucking pure white, like alabaster skin, and except for Josh, who's this like African American guy. And I love that he's the cultural appropriator of the ultimate white culture. The black guy goes in ready to culturally appropriate for his thesis paper, and then the fucking white douchebag Christian steals his idea. So the white guy is appropriating the black guy, appropriating white people, and it's hilarious. When I was watching it, I was thinking like, man, Eli Roth must be like fucking kicking himself over not making White Inferno first, since Green Inferno was basically just him remaking Cannibal Holocaust and Cannibal Ferox. He did this talk in Toronto like 10 years ago that I went to, and he was talking about horror in that specific genre. And I just think it's hilarious that he didn't come up with White Inferno first. Ari Aster Christianed him. And I loved the rivalry between Josh and Christian. That was like my favorite part of the movie, actually. Because really the worst crime that was committed in the movie was Christian stealing his buddy's thesis idea. Like a fucking low-life, unoriginal piece of shit. And that reason alone is why I loved to watch him burn alive inside a bear carcass. I didn't care about the cheating or the insensitivity, or him drinking some chick's period mead while his girlfriend sat next to him with tears drying on her face. Like, I loved that it showed, and I think this also again feeds back into sort of what I was saying about Hereditary, where it's like these people who are like, oh, I'm just like representing this like voice, this unheard voice, but it's like you're just doing it to make yourself look better. You don't care about the culture or doing right by the culture. You're just trying to make yourself look like a fucking hero. And then that part where he's like, oh, it's plausible deniability. Like, I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't know what my friends were doing. Not me, man. Amazing. Perfect. Fucking classic male ally bullshit. And can we also just like address, at what point is it okay to cheat on your girlfriend? I mean, like, she clearly hadn't fucked him in a long time because she was so depressed. So what's the grace period on that? I don't know. I think Christian had every right to live it up on vacay. What happens in Harga stays in Harga. Mostly because what happens in Harga ends in death, I guess. But it's not like Christian didn't suffer. He was basically date raped by the entire like female population of that cult. Like, if that scene played out in reversed genders, people would have flipped their fucking shit. People would have been protesting Midsommar. Which is why I talked about the short film earlier too. It's like because it was like a child raping the dad, somehow the movie worked. Imagine it's this like horny ginger guy coming in this chick's beer, and then he has his bros drug her to make her more open to influence as they all watch and chant and like hold his hand while he fucking comes inside her. Like, that shit would not fly. That shit would not fly. So I love that it was like the guy being kind of date raped. It was a disturbing scene too. I was like losing my mind and just trying not to laugh. It was so fucking brilliant. God, I love this movie. God bless you, Ari Aster. Mazel tov. And I loved the deformed pubescent prophet that looked like a blonde Isma, Davy Jones, who'd been involved in a chimp attack. And they listened to him because he's the only innocent one, which really felt like a dig at SJWs, which pleased me because he's basically the only one capable of being objective and not committing a sin because he's so fucking simple that he has no complexity or humanity as a result. He's like a victim of inbreeding. The ultimate victim, really. Like, he's a victim of a genetic, he's a victim on a genetic level. Like, they abused him before he was even born. So he's like their ordained Yoda, which fucking tracks, I guess. Like, I feel like the only way that you can really get out of this current social situation that we're in is to literally be like retarded or something. Like, you have to actually be just so simple that you cannot commit some kind of crime against another person or do something worthy of like a call out. And then there's Pele, the classic white knight, except he's actually good looking. I don't know how many good looking white knights there are out there. I don't think I've met a single one. But he's the guy who's there for your girlfriend after you dump her, or like she's upset with you. And he pretends that he's being sympathetic, but really he's just trying to fuck her. Anyway, classic, loved it. You know, and I also feel like the scene with Christian uh, coming inside that ginger chick felt like a metaphor for everyone being in your bedroom telling you how to fuck. Uh, it felt like it was kind of commenting on that type of thing where it's like, like, you can't just tell people how to fuck. Like, everyone has a different fuck style. And then the other guy who I loved pissing on the tree, and then he was killed. Death by ignorance, death by lack of the community's ability to discern cultural differences and context, being executed over nominal human flaw or mishap. Great. And then, you know, the old people willingly walking off a cliff to serve the community, and then being brutally bludgeoned to death until you're a fucking pulpy mess of an old person because you dared to survive. Like, you know, it's like you've served your purpose for our community, now you die. And then, you know, shrooms are associated with awakening. So, you know, and I kind of felt like the way that he had set it up with like the community being empathetic, it turned her ill mental health into like this contagion that they all caught. And that scene with them all being like, whatever, it was like a Twitter mob. Like, it really was, and I loved it. I really love how he's presenting. I love how he's putting a mirror up, but in a way that I feel like people aren't really recognizing themselves in the narrative, like in the way that they should be. You know what I mean? Like, when I watched it with my ex-boyfriend, he did not like that ending, and he was like, well, I'm totally misquoting him, but he, you know, it was something to the effect of like that was an overreaction, like she shouldn't have killed her boyfriend, that was her boyfriend, she should have saved him. And I was like, no, she shouldn't have. Like, you know, I was like all about it, like, kill that motherfucking boyfriend, you got this chance to start afresh, like, why not fucking kill him, be done with him. And loved it. And I think that, you know, that does comment on the female and male perspective when you're looking at it in a relationship. But I also feel like when I felt that way, I was like very aware of siding with the girlfriend and what that kind of said about me to a degree, where I was like, yeah, sure, she should have killed him because he was a bad boyfriend. And that feels like the mentality that is happening right now. You know, that's like an offshoot of Me Too, which I think is a valid movement as it pertains to like sexual harassment in the workplace and rape, you know, and men just being made more aware of how fucking scary they can be. But I also think that it's like, just biologically, men are different from women, and they think differently from women, and I know this for a fact. And I know some people like to be like, no, scientifically that's not true. Scientifically, that is true. That's very true. Men are different. Most of my friends are guys. I definitely know that guys think differently from women, and they just fucking lie to women because women often cannot cope with the fact that guys think about sex all the time and are perverts and are just doing shit because you tell them to, not because they actually fucking want to or because they actually care. So, I don't know. Wake up. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I felt like, oh boy, like, yeah, like you get swept up in it. You got swept up in the movie, and we're like rooting for Danny, even though she's kind of boring and like doesn't really bring anything to the table. You're like, well, she's a victim, so she deserves better than this guy. Like, poor Danny. And him, he's just some fucking guy who doesn't want to be with his girlfriend anymore, but doesn't have the balls to break up with her. So she ends up going on a trip with him. And he, you know, he pays the ultimate price because he's just a clueless guy. It's like, this is what it feels like. It's like women are just have lost their minds, like hating on men for just being different from them. It's like there's nothing wrong with a guy liking to look at tits. There's nothing wrong with a guy, I don't know, prioritizing certain things over things that women prioritize. It's just there's a difference. And if you have that much of a problem with it, then find a guy that fits that. Like, don't put it on the fucking world to fit your narrative. And I feel like this movie was showing the world shaping to Danny's narrative and her finding these people who also were like, yes, we hate these people and we're going to sacrifice them. And then they sacrificed some of their own. And they tricked these guys, and you can see it on their faces in the end. They're like, wait, I don't want to fucking die. Like, of course you don't want to fucking die. You were tricked. You were brainwashed by these people to think that you were fighting a good cause, but you weren't. You weren't. You were used by these people to further their agenda. Anyways, I love Ari Aster. I can't wait to see his next movie. I can't wait to see the director's cut. I don't know. I've read the lake scene. I don't know that it adds a whole lot on the script level, but I also haven't reread it since I watched the movie. Maybe it does. I think it just sort of fleshes out the relationship a little bit more between Danny and Christian, where you just kind of see more of that her not getting what she needs and him being fucking clueless. But anyways, yeah. Go see the director's cut. Okay.